All right, welcome back to another show, everybody. Today's guest clearly has an addiction to horsepower. He's got a C5 Vet, a 68 Camaro, 70 Camaro, C8 Corvette. Um, Probably a pile of trophies to go along with all of them. So I'm anxious to learn about particularly the autocross road race cars. He's got some drag cars in there too. So welcome to the show, Jamie Elliot.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So we'll get started like we do every episode and just tell us. Well, we know who you are, where you're from, and how long ago you got in the autocross or road race hobby, or even just cars in general.
Um, I'm from Kentucky, from northern Kentucky, about 20 minutes south of Cincinnati. I've kind of always grown up here and still live here. Um, Pretty much got into motors. Always had a love ever since I can remember for cars and and motorcycles. I feel like most of us kind of come from Hot Wheel type
Hmm.
things, and I guess I got my first dirt bike around 4 or 5 years old, and really loved the dirt biking. So I dirt biked my whole life as a young person, and I played football and stuff. So I played sports as well, but always had a love to get on my dirt bike. And we, growing up Kentucky, we did have land that we could ride the bike on. So I was exposed to being able to make jumps and stuff. And as I got older, we started to buy cooler dirt bikes and started to play with more motocross style tracks and uh, uh, I guess racing through woods and stuff like that. So I always really just loved motorcycles, and I bought my first street CBR 600 when I was 15.
Oh wow.
And I started ripping that around town really before I had my license. We were just ripping our street bikes around and having fun with that. And quickly met up with some friends that were a little bit older that were doing track days and stuff. So they let me tag along, and I was able to work side jobs as a teenager to pay for a little bit of track days. So did that until I was like 16 or 17, and then Vera had some like 600 super sport classes that I was able to purchase a helmet and some a suit, and I started to race in Weir, at 16, 17 years old, on some crappy equipment and be mediocre at best. So I did that, I guess, and raced the motorcycle thing until I was 22, I guess, until maybe '02 or '01. And at that point, I always had a sports car. Didn't really know nothing or much about it, but just always loved driving sports cars. And my passion was always for the motorcycles. But I had a family young, and I ended up having a lot of work, and I ended up kind of putting the motorsports thing to rest around that time, and I just went full fledged into working and started a business, and I already had a family started. So yeah, kind of did that for about 10 years. I didn't do anything but work. I did have sports that I did, physical sports like that I did that didn't cost me any money, and I didn't really have to travel. So I guess I was about 32 or 33 or 2012 or 13. My business started to make enough money that I could, I had a couple cool cars during that time. And I basically, I was in Florence, Kentucky, and I could hear cars winding out, and they had an autocross event at Turfway Park. And I stopped in just to take a look, and I was just super intrigued. There was a lot of different cars, sports cars and Hondas, and so I thought, man, this is super interesting, and seemed like they were really kind of aggressively driving around a parking lot. So I thought this would be fun. At the time, I had C5 Z06, and I thought, man, I get out here and maybe rip it around. I had my C5, and I didn't really know what to do with it. I was, thinking maybe I'll put a supercharger on it or something fun. And so I went out and I autocrossed, around that time. I guess it was 2012 or 13. I started to autocross, and it did take long to kind of, realize that it was technically kind of hard to figure out, and then it intrigued me. So,
Yeah.
I feel like that was kind of started, hey, maybe I'll do this one or two times this summer. And I think 012 or 13 or 2012, 2013. And then the next year I thought maybe I'll do that a little bit more. And I think it was 13 or 14 that I thought, my Z06 was all stock and maybe it'd be cool to get on some like race tires. And so I knew they had that SSP class and the SECA. I think it was ASP before that, but I thought, well, that seemed like a good class because I did put long tube headers on the car and um, mufflers, like an air intake. And I thought, well, I'll get me a set of used wheels and tires and it'll make it more fun. So kind of started in, an SSP class that season and just kind of figured things out. I was, like I said, maybe mediocre at best. And I went to, I ended up calling, Sam Strano and he ended up putting me on the right direction on shocks. And Danny Pop was a local guy, kind of a local legend around here in Cincinnati. So I ended up talking to him as well. And I feel like they both those guys kind of pointed me in the right direction. And started going to Evo schools and things went escalated pretty quick. Years went by fast. 13, 14 goes by, 15 goes by. I think I'm still running that SSP class and was getting better slowly at it. And the cam thing was coming out. The cam was really popular, and I always liked muscle cars, and I already had the Corvette, and Danny Pop I feel like was doing real good at it. So everyone in our Cincinnati era kind of knew him. And so I think when I blew my engine, I can't remember what year it was, but instead of putting the engine back to run SSP, I thought, well, might as well try to build the engine just a little bit better and try out this cam thing. And of course, when it's going from Hoosiers with low power to back then BFGs with more power.
Mm.
So instantaneously, it felt like I struggled, honestly. It felt like the car was harder to drive. So I kind of went down the rabbit hole, I guess, as people say, on learning how to drive the car with more power and less grip. And then as did got into some road course stuff, which I felt real comfortable with because I did a lot of that with motorcycles. So my progression has kind of been long and slow. Of every year, I felt like I would say I want to maybe win better here or do this, and it seems like 15 years, kind of 10, 15 years kind of went by pretty quick. And here I am, with 4 race cars and spending a lot of time and playing with cars. And I thoroughly enjoy it. I felt like I've traveled around, kind of the U.S. with cars now and saw some cool things I probably wouldn't have got to see. So it's really rolled into a hobby that that I love to do, and kind of at this point, I kind of always look for fun events that are challenging and are fun, so that's kind of what I look for.
How was the comparison between running a bike on the track versus a car?
Unfortunately, my skill set from the bike didn't carry over as much as what I thought it would be. I
Mm.
thought I would instantaneously be really good in a car since I was decent on a motorcycle, and it just wasn't the case at first. I don't think I was bad. I felt like, I've always been super competitive in sports, so I like to win. And I expected to win instantaneously, and that just I felt like I was competitive, but it was harder. So with the car, you got alignment involved, and I raced a lot of wheel to wheel motorcycle stuff, and so on road course, it was just a lot different with the car and going to autocross, which autocross is really mind-boggling. If you're into motorsports and you've not did it, it can be really confusing at first on how fast everything moves. And you do it for a long time, and things really slow down, and you get more comfortable at it. But it I got into autocross on my own. I didn't have a family member get me in it. And so I didn't have a whole lot of direction to start with.
Mm.
But yeah, it's really fast paced. So it's just really it was really challenging at first. So my motorcycle skills, besides understanding traction, I feel like the dirt bike stuff and road racing motorcycles gave me a little bit of an understanding on sliding the tire and traction.
Mm.
Uh, I didn't know anything about the geometry of the car. I was mechanically somewhat inclined because I did, I had several vehicles that I had to maintain through my construction company.
Mm.
And so I could do basic mechanic work, and I was lucky enough to have a shop before I ever started racing.
Mm.
So I felt like I was in a position, to take on a hobby like this that was, I was in a comfortable position to take on a hobby like this, to give it some effort. So,
Right.
I just didn't really anticipate how much I would really fall in love with the sport. And I really did, fall in love with cars, the motorsports aspect of the cars
Mm.
pretty quickly.
Right. So I guess on the bikes, I mean, you're relying on your body position a lot to adjust probably the handling. I don't know. I've never raced a motorcycle, but whereas in the car, you know, you don't want to be moving around a whole lot. You got to rely on the suspension and alignment and everything to do. So yeah, I can see the difference. Besides maybe just knowing track layouts, right? You know,
Yeah, that was
it.
one good thing when I went to like Putnam and tracks that I knew for motorcycles.
Mm.
I was already pretty comfortable there, and I feel like I'm still really comfortable at tracks I've been running
Mm.
since the 90s and stuff, and other tracks I'm not as comfortable with that I haven't ran as much. But being on the bike is a little bit more active. You're still processing pretty quickly, and the car's the same way. You're processing information pretty quickly. I feel like I'm a pretty active driver in the car, so I actually probably move around more than I need to move around.
Yeah.
But yeah, the biggest thing that I struggle with is understanding like alignments and the shock stuff, because I didn't adjust my shocks as much as I do on the bike as I did the car. I
Mm.
did drop like the forks down on the triple tree and try to gain like some advantages in different ways. But you got one shock in the tail of it, your two shocks, you do a little bit of adjustment on that. We did race on GP tires on the bike, so I was always on a slick. So I kind of understood how those reacted. And when I went to the Hoosiers on the car, I felt pretty good on that in that SSP class for a local driver, regional driver. I feel like I was doing well at that level. And when I went to the BFGs, stuff like trail braking and stuff was confusing me on that stuff. So
Mm.
driving schools helped out. I did a couple of years where I did as many driving schools as I could, and
Okay.
that really helped me out. And I ended up having some really good driving coaches that ended up helping me out.
Right. The good thing about having a Corvette is there's a huge community of people that do this, so you can kind of lean on them for the shock settings, tire pressures, alignment, so on and so forth. I mean, I struggle with my car. Nobody's doing what I'm doing, and I mean, there's a few, but it's just things I had to figure out. I had tire pyrometers to figure out pressures, looking at the wear patterns on the tires, and you know, looking at still photos of the car when it's turning to try and determine how much it's rolling and the angle of the tires and so on and so forth, so you definitely have an advantage when you use a common platform. But um I know you switched. What did you switch? What was the reason for going with the Camaro from the Corvette?
You know, I've gotten in the habit of breaking cars, and when I break them, I don't have any cars to play with. So I noticed pretty quick that when I need to make a decision, if I'm going to break a car, I'm either going to sit out or ask people for co-drives, which all that happens a little bit. But I got pretty confident in my ability to break a car pretty quick. So I hit up a C6 Z06. That was kind of my backup to the C5. So when I broke the C5, I jumped in the C6 and finished out that season. And then one season I broke them both. And I had a 71 Corvette that I bought off Mike Johnson. and I had no other choice but to run the 71 Corvette, which was definitely was a cool car. It was far different than the C5 and C6 as far as the how it wanted the attitude of the car, how it wanted to react. So I felt like that was a really good season that I ran that car because it had manual brakes. Those cars do some things really good. They put power down really good. They turn in really good. They can be very loose, or they may want to oversteer pretty easily. And so, trying to figure out things where, in the C5 and the C6, I didn't realize how kind of easier that car was to drive compared to some of the vintage stuff.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so I ran that 71 after breaking the C5 and the C6. And then, like I said, that was a cool car. And I ended up getting the C5 fixed, and I ended up deciding I was going to go just, with this cam thing. I did have a drag car. I had a 67 Chevelle before my 70 Camaro drag car. So I did do a decent amount of, a little bit of drag racing. And I understood the engineering of drag racing, which at the end of the day, I feel like is ahead of autocross and road racing as far as their technology is pretty in depth in some of the
Mm.
drag racing circles. And so I thought, my I want, I first got rid of the 67 Chevelle, which was a cool car, but it wasn't a real race car. And I bought a real full-blown race car. And I was pretty shocked at like the difference between a real race car and a street car that you modify. So I thought, well, why don't I do the same thing in autocross and road racing? Why don't I just stop playing with this car and I build a full-blown race car? So I took the C5 and we completely built a rate. We completely took it down to the frame and cut everything apart and repositioned a lot of different things and rewired the car and added things. And then I came back and the C5 was a totally different animal after
Mm.
that. So how I got the Camaro is, when I sent my car to Charlotte to Race Wire Technologies, a really good wire guy, and he basically was telling me about this Camaro that he wired that was a really cool car and kind of built to do similar things as my C5. And I was like intrigued and said, well, if it, I'd love to talk to the guy if he's ever interested in selling it because I love to buy and sell things. And so the guy ended up a really good guy, Peyton King's his name. He started the build when he had little kids, I think, and the build took longer than he inspected. And I think when the build was done, his son was in college and he was trying to be more with his son, and he's a great family guy, and so I ended up picking the car up from him, and we actually did some trading with my 71 Corvette, which I felt like the Camaro was a better race car platform.
Mm.
So that's how I ended up getting the Camaro in my stable, I guess, is just the opportunity to have more of a full-on race car where the 71 was a good car, but it was still a street car that was modified. For my Camaro, I guess you could say it's a race car at the end of the day.
Yeah. Is that, I mean, I saw some photos of it. Is that like a full chassis?
100%. Yeah,
100%? Yeah.
it's a full dedicated chassis race car.
Yeah. It kind of almost looks like a NASCAR type
So,
chassis.
so it was built in Charlotte, and it
Mm.
was inspired. Most people that built it worked for NASCAR teams.
Mm.
So it's got an SB2 NASCAR engine in it.
Oh,
It's got a
nice.
box. It's got a custom Ford 9-inch floater.
Mm.
Um, it's got engine setbacks in it, and it's got it's completely custom built car from everything from the sheet metal to it does have a 68 body on it, a roof and rears, but they had to do sheet metal custom work because it's such a wide body car.
Mm.
When I got the car, most of it was done. It had really good wiring, and I took the car and it was in primer. They sent the whole car through powder coat.
Mm.
Um, and I tested the car at local autocross just to see if it was, it was built to be a road race car. So
Mm.
the car really wants to run high speed. And that's really what the design of the car. But I'm like, I like the autocross and I like the road course. and I want to make sure that this car could at least be okay on autocross. So I took it out to a Cincinnati regional event, and it did pretty well off the rip. So I thought, okay, this is going to be a good car. And the technology I figured out from the C5, I feel like I was really one of the first people in autocross to really get in depth with traction controls and torque management to kind of on big power. I don't think honestly anybody's got more power than me in the sport. And the only way you make that stuff work is getting traction controls and torque management stuff. So I thought, okay, from what I've learned from the C5, let me implement that into this car. So I put a lot of technology into it that's in the C5
Mm.
to where it's at today. And at the end of the day, it's kind of I'm still kind of figuring the car out, but it's came a long way in a short time. Um, just this year from where I drove the car at the beginning of the year to the end of the year, the car's gotten really quick, and it's track dependent on a bigger open up course. It's pretty fast. I would say it's about as fast as anything that's out there right now.
Mm. How much horsepower does the vet have?
960.
Phew. That's naturally aspirated.
Yeah.
Phew,
It's
wow.
a 454 LXR block, 15-to-1 compression. It's got a stage 5 daily dry sump. It's a solid roller cam, so you do have valve lash maintenance to deal with.
Mm.
Rodex heads, BES racing engines built it. Um, so it's it's pretty. The C5 is pretty ramped up, I guess.
Yeah. What ECU you using for all the torque management and traction control and everything?
Haltech, I
All
use
text.
all Haltech, yeah,
Yeah.
traction management and torque management, and then it's got Bosch ABS. It's got a SATA sequential. It's got a custom RPM differential. Um, it's got some chassis modifications on setbacks and stuff, pedal
Mm.
box. Weight distribution's been changed. Of course, it's caged. Most of the car's carbon fiber.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
it's got Alcon brakes, and I guess it's got about the wish list of coolness. I don't really. It's got custom A arms and a lot of kind of one-off parts on
Mm.
the car. Um, you know, to make the car pretty quick. And I kind of do feel like, honestly, it's the fastest KMS car in the U.S. Um, I feel like, maybe I'm not the fastest person, but
Mm.
it's probably the fastest KMS car in the U.S.
Right. Is it sequential? Is it still mounted out back like normal?
Yes, it is.
Yep. Okay.
That was a big discussion when we were putting the car together, how we wanted to do things, because we had the ability to do whatever I want, whatever. I was going to do a quick change. I was going to do a winner's quick change, and I was going to mount the transmission behind the motor
Mm.
and change things. But I'm like, realistically, I'm not going to go to these events and change my ring opinion.
Mm.
So how about instead my thought process? How about I build an engine that has such high RPM that I'm not never going to run out of RPM, and then I gear the car to do everything I want in autocross. And then if I have to shift the car, it's not a big deal. And then if I go to road course, it's not a big deal because it does have a sequential. So it is lever actuated. I don't have paddles
Mm.
because I looked at a couple rules and stuff like grid life that I thought about doing. And I just looked at like various different competitions and thought, to keep the nostalgicness of the car, let me keep the sequential lever actuated. But the pedal box and the seating, the car doesn't have factory fuel cells. Where the fuel cells are is where I actually sit.
Oh, okay.
So the whole seating arrangement's been moved about 18 inches back in the car.
Oh, wow.
There is some motor, movement as well. And it's got, magnesium cradle out of a C6 Z. And it's got some Ackerman and stuff involved in the geometry of the suspension. But yeah, the transmission's in the back, and the car turns 9,000 RPMs, so it'll
Damn.
do 97 miles an hour in second gear, but it's got enough torque that it'll take off at a lower mile per hour as well.
Mm.
And then if I have to shift to third, we built the transmission mainly for kind of if I would get in a situation in autocross where I have the opportunity to run like 120 miles an hour, 125, it'll do that really fast. So I feel like, you know, there is autocrosses that I've hit 120 miles an hour in several times in the car, which is pretty fast for an autocross, I guess. So
Yeah, I'd say.
it's
Where was that?
well, there was an event called Cone Strike that I hit 122 at on the head. It was kind of a crazy event as far as we ran it at a drag strip
Mm.
and they had this like long, narrow road. It was like a bunch of little roads connected. And they had this long, narrow road that you had to run unobstructed because then you actually went through like a gate opening. It was pretty, at the end of the day, it was actually pretty sketchy, but it was fun. But, you know, so I hit it there. Drive Auto X, Eric, typically opens up some courses.
Mm.
And so I've hit above 120 several times in that. I've kind of been asked not to give exact numbers on that, but it's been said King of the Mountain, of course, you know, I've hit 127 coming through the finish line of King of the Mountain, I think,
Mm.
twice. So, yeah, I mean, the car, when it is, you know, it doesn't, you know, I can drive in a straight line decently, I guess. So when the
Mm.
car's in a straight line and it's forward, torque management takes over and it delivers horsepower pretty quick.
Yeah, cool. Have you ever done any Optima series events with the car?
Yeah, I did a
Yeah.
lot of Optima events over the years. In 2019, I won Daytona, that event, and so I went to Vegas with Optima that year and
Yeah, cool.
ran out at the Vegas Motor Speedway, and you know had the car in SEMA. So that was a just you know really cool experience. I've never been to SEMA before, so that was an enjoyable experience with those guys. I ran Charlotte Optima, and I won that. I ran NCM, and I won that. Um, I ran Sebring and I won that. A couple other, you know, events, but Optima's, you know, to me, I love autocrossing. I love road coursing. You do it in the same weekend. It's just a bonus.
Mm.
Um, you know, you do have some stuff like D&E, which depending on the class you're in, makes things, you know, more challenging. You keep your car clean during the weekend. But I would say, you know, all the guys out there running Optima are super fun guys and Jimmy and all those guys are doing a really, you know, good job at putting those events on. So
Yeah.
I feel like if you haven't ran those events, it's definitely, you know, I feel like I probably ran about every event you can think of at this point. Um, but and I just could just trying different events, but
Mm.
those Optima events are pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it seems like you'd probably do pretty good in the DNA with that car.
I have gone to D&E, not since it's been a race car. I always went to law just because every time I was taking it to an Optima event, I for the past couple of years, I've actually used the Optima events as like a test and tune to like warm me up for the season, make sure mechanically a car is good, and just to have fun. So I
Mm.
went to the outlaw class, so I didn't have to do the D&E, but it does have a lot of D&E cool tech. And at the end of the day, it is a street car, and it does have headlights and turn signals and tail lights. It's got a horn and a radio, and every you know, it's got fuzzy dice if it needs to have and you know, so it can go through the D&E. I was more concerned about just having a fun weekend and doing testing and getting prepped for the season
Mm.
more than really winning a class and trying to. Yeah, I knew that that would more than likely be my only Optima I was going to do for the season. So I didn't have a concern of like running the series. You know that that series can be a series where a lot of guys they try to win multiple events or at least one, and then they really try to win the whole thing. And I didn't have an intention of trying to win the whole thing.
Right. Right. What's the on the schedule for that car this year?
I mean, you know, a lot of things are just coming out. The schedule is just coming out, so I haven't nailed a whole lot down. You know, we got Texas and Optima. That seems pretty intriguing, and that's only 13 hours from me.
Mm.
You got NOLA down there. That's pretty intriguing. And I went down there and ran NOLA Optima when they were down there a couple years ago, and I really liked that track. Um, Those two are definitely an option to kick off the season and kind of get me warmed up. What car I'll take, I don't know yet. But the Drive Auto X's we always attend just mainly because it's like a fun time. And we always do SCCA stuff, is we do a lot of regional stuff to warm us up, and we'll do a national event here and there if the opportunity arises. I used to always do Motor State Challenge, which was a fun course we did in Gingerman, and I feel I got the track record for late model and early model for that
Oh,
event.
cool.
Yeah, the C5's got it and the Camaro's got it, but so we've won that event. Almost every year we go. We don't break. I broke the C6 year before last there, so we didn't get to finish it. But at the end of the day, I have to look more in depthly at my schedule. Last year, I didn't run as much. The year before, I ran a lot. I went out to nationals and was lucky enough to win I won Cam nationals in 2024 and Cam S. And I didn't go last year, and that's a long drive for me, Nebraska. So, yeah, I don't know, what's dialed down. I do know I do want. I'm kind of chomping at the bit to race. I'm feeling the bug. So I know we're going to do stuff. I just don't know what car we're going to do it in. My goal has kind of gotten to be, to try to not break things as quickly as I have in the past, because that just gets troublesome with your mentality and your pocketbook. So
Right.
trying to just keep things under control and just really just have a lot of fun at the end of the day.
Right. So I'm sure you saw the Drive Auto X has the new series now.
Yeah.
So you're going to try and hit all three of them over here out
Uh,
east?
I am. I'm definitely going to try to hit what I can. I think there's one in Alabama, if I'm not
I think so.
mistaken. I think I may try to hit that. I could either bring the C5 or the Camaro,
Mm.
which would be interesting. I just shooting from the hip. I know some guys in vintage class that can be really fast in vintage class that are the Skins are in Tennessee, and I feel like the Skins got a really good car. They didn't go to nationals last year, but I felt like if they did, they would have been definitely a strong contender with their Marine Camaro.
Mm.
So I could see them going there. Um, and then I could take my C5, but you got guys like out of Florida, like Ian Stewart, that's got a C5, and he's a hell of a driver and super fast car. And the C5 is fast, so he could come northbound from Florida, and he could definitely be a problem. So, I don't know what car I'm going to take to that, but it would be one of the two to that in particular event, the Camaro or the C5.
Right. Yeah, I like the program they're going to run when they have I guess the championship, the East versus West championship somewhere.
That'll be real cool. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you got, out west, I feel like Austin Barnes is kind of their front runner with his C5. He's a super fast driver, and him and his dad got a really good program, and they got a really good car. So I feel like Austin's super strong in the C5 if he decided to jump in and do that. I don't know what their plans are, but you got a lot of cool vintage guys out there in
Mm.
out west that when I went out to the Outlaw Series in 2019, I got a chance to run some of those, like Mike Mayer and some of those guys, to see, it just we don't cross paths, me being so far east and them being so far west.
Mm.
We really don't cross paths unless we travel to one side of the country. So yeah, definitely Texas has some good drivers, and um, so it should be super interesting to see just kind of how things shake down.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, I'd love to participate, but my schedule's kind of full already. Um, I'm planning to do autocross week, which is in July, and I think that same weekend they have Camaro Fest over there in Bowling
So that's
Green.
another one. I think I'm going to try to do Camaro Fest.
Mm.
I've heard some talk about them doing some NA drag racing stuff. And
Mm.
my 70 Camaro, it's got a 638, and it's a street legal car, but it's at the end of the day, it's a race car.
Mm.
And I mean, I've never really been outran by anything in it on a drag strip NA.
Mm.
So I feel like that would be a fun car to take if they had that NA drag racing there. And then
Mm.
I would go and take it my 68 there in autocross and take part in the autocross activities. but
Right.
I would take them both on the stacker and run the Camaro down there there at night, which would be fun. I think super fun. Beach Bend's a cool drag strip, and Bowling Green's a fun town. Good restaurants and
Mm.
just a good atmosphere. So Camaro Fest I've never did. I feel like I need to do that this year. It always coincided with Motor State Challenge. So now the
Oh.
Motor State Challenge is not supposed to happen anymore. Maybe I'm going to do that.
Mm.
So you got a lot of good Camaros that are going to be in that, and maybe we take the 68, kind of see if it's okay to compete there.
Right. Have you ever done LS Fest there?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did LS Fest a lot.
Mm.
I did the road course competition and I did the grand champion competition. We used
Mm.
to kind of do that every single year, and that's been a fun event. I did win the road course competition there a couple years ago in the class I was in, which was race tire class, which for one I guess was for race cars one year. But yeah, so LS Fest is fun. LS Fest can kind of be a little bit, there's a lot of people there. It's a huge festival, a lot of crowd. So I have quartermaster clutches in my race cars. So, my cars go pretty good, but they don't want to scoot around so they're either on or off.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's the only stressful thing about LS Fest is moving the car around in crowds,
Mm.
riding the clutches around. But
Mm.
that's what But Ellis Fest is always a good time. Always strong competitors in anything you do there. So it's just I think I am going to try to do that. I didn't go it last year, but when you go to Ellis Fest, you just got to get ready for a big party. And
Right.
I don't mind partying, so we may try to do it this year.
Yeah. I mean, I do Mo Party, which is basically the same thing, Grand Champion. And man, I think it's been the funnest event I've ever done every year. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I like drag racing, autocross is fun, but it's fun to throw your autocross car on a drag strip every now and then.
Oh yeah, that's cool
Yeah.
because you do the drag straight on the Grand Champion style stuff. So yep,
Yeah.
I did LSS with my 71 because it's got an LS in it
Mm.
and drag race that and stuff. Of course, I think it had a Muncie at the time, which I ended up blowing that up and I put a Tremor TKX in it. But and I did it with my C5 several times, and I think I did it with my C6.
Mm.
But yeah, the LS Fest is a party. Or,
Yeah.
or all them fests. You got Ford Fest, you got
Mm.
Mopar Fest, LS Fest. I think that can be a wild time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So which car do you like driving more, the Corvette or the Camaro?
So the fun factor, man, is really close at this point. The Camaro is a really fun car. It's not as fast as the C5 yet, but I feel like it's not far off. It's different because it's a stick axle over an RS. So the stick axle is pretty cool and it hooks power pretty good in a straight line. Um, C5's got a bunch of the SB2. Those motors were 840 horsepower motors. That's their design, and they're designed to run real high RPM. So they want to be up in the RPMs. So I changed the ring and pinion several times to get that car at a higher RPM to be in more of a happy spot because they were kind of high horsepower, lower torque
Mm.
builds. Of course, the C5, but the Camaro does got Bosch ABS. It's got Haltech Nexus R5 traction controls, torque management. It's got, like I said, dog box transmission. There's a pretty big setback with motor placement in that car. The balance of it's good. It's got full aero. The car's not heavy. So it's a pretty competitive car. Um, I don't know. It's super tough. They're both custom kind of around my body with pedal boxes and seats and how the wheels and stuff. So the C5 is pretty darn, at the end of the day, it's pretty darn good. It's got a ton of power and it's on demand. It's like a two-stroke dirt bike all the time.
Mm.
Fun factor, I tell you what, half the time when I'm sitting in my office figuring out what I'm going to do, I'm thinking which one I should take. Like if it's, I'll take either one a lot of the times. And they're really close to equal as far as the fun factor. If money was on the line, I think the C5 would be a little bit quicker because it's actually a more narrow car. And it's got, the Camaro's got a 107.5 wheelbase. The Corvette's a 105 wheelbase. So there's advantages with that, but they both got big aero and They both got a lot of grip, and C5 does have more power. I do have a spare motor that I could put in the Camaro that makes pretty big, north of 800 horsepower. That's just sitting in my shop that I've thought about switching, but I really like this SB2. And I think I'm going to keep this SB2 in there, and when it messes up, I'll just refresh it. And I think I can get about 1,000 horsepower out of that when we refresh it. So I like them both. That's a really tough one. The cool factor goes to the Camaro, just because older cars are more art than the newer cars. Anything, to me, anything 1973 and below, it's just as cool as it can get.
Mm.
So, yeah, definitely you got that cool factor with the older cars.
So I know you got a lot of technology in it in the Camaro, but does it still feel more, I guess, analog compared to the
Yeah,
vet?
I know what you mean. When you
Mm,
drive an old, it's hard to describe a vintage car till you drive one.
mm,
And from the smell to the feel, it kind of drives, it feels like you're driving a bucket of bolts. Like
right.
you feel kind of like, oh, these cars really, these cars were never designed to do stuff like this. And,
Mm,
they come from the factory with 15-inch wheels that are 7 inches wide. And then you got ginormous tires. You've done maybe tripled the horsepower. You've dubbed them and everything else. So no, the Camaro. Now my 71 did. My
mm.
71 smelt like an antique. It felt like it was just like my dirt bike days, where every time I drove the 71, even in autocross, I'd have to get underneath it and tighten all the bolts up because it would
Mm.
fling bolts apart in it. The Camaro feels more, so does my Corvette. They feel more like go-karts than anything else.
Okay.
They're really more go-kartish-y,
Mm,
how they feel. They both need the Corvette really rewards you for patience. And if you underdrive the car and you're calm, the car's got enough things that it'll give you a lot of time if you just keep patience. The the Camaro with the stick axle is the opposite. You need to almost overdrive the car, so your mindset's different from the car. With the stick axle, it just needs you to put the car on the limit all the time to get the car to kind of loosen up. Where the Corvette, if you go to overdrive that car, the car will kind of spin out.
mm.
It doesn't like a lot of overdriving.
You have 315s, 315 tires?
I mean, so I got 12-inch wides on the front, 13
Mm,
and a half on the rear.
okay.
So if sometimes I'll do different track days in the C5 where I run 335s in the front, 345s in the rear. Both of the cars are set up to run 335s in the front, 345s
Okay.
in the rear, but we're limited to what's competitive. So I did try the Vitor 345s on both cars last year on 13 and a half. So really stretch that 345 wide. Of course, both cars are custom tubbed to be
Mm,
able to do stuff like that. And then both of them have 12-inch wheels on the front, which I've had 335s on the front. And but at the tire game this year is up in the air. We've got a lot of new options.
mhm,
We got new sizes, we got new things. But last year, I did end up settling out on the Yokohama AO52 315s, and I feel like the big event is King of the Mountain. So you're kind of, at the end of the day, you're kind of figuring out, like, if you're going to go to King of the Mountain, what tire are you going to be on? And that is one of the events that I feel like I maybe take the most serious, as far as that there is going to be good drivers in every single class. So if you
mhm,
go to King of the Mountain and you did well all year long and you're not prepared for that event, you're going to find out that things are going to move along pretty quick in the pecking order. So that's where I kind of figure out, okay, what tire, I kind of test all season long to figure out what tire is going to be the tire to take there. So I ended up settling out. Not that the P1s weren't a good tire; they did a lot of things good. I love the 345 sizes. I looked at my data logger. That's how I can tell what tire's hooking better. Basically, I have a trend chart, and I can
mm,
see at a certain mile per hour and a certain RPM what's spiking, and basically knocking the tire into a slip mode,
mhm,
which is activating traction control to slow it down. And I noticed that the Yokohamas were, spiking slightly lower.
Hmm.
So it was just a decision that I made. And, with temperature heat up and stuff like that, the Yokohamas last season were heating up quicker. And so that's what I decided. So I stretched out 315s on 12s and I stretched them out on 13 and a half. So it really looked weird on the back, stretching 315s on that wide a tire. This year we got, Bridgestone RE71s are in the mix. We got the P1s are still in the conversation. You got Yokohamas. I don't know what else is coming in with wide enough sizes that we
Yeah.
could.
I think Vittor came out with another new one, didn't they? I don't know what the characteristics of it.
We
They don't
did,
make
but
the sizes I need, so I don't really pay attention to them.
yeah, Dallas is a great guy, and he's really, doing a good job of getting that tire available for everybody. And
Mm.
so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to be the competitive tire. That's a pretty good question, but we're all going to find out.
Yeah.
So,
I'm on the Bridgestones and I'm anxious to try the new RZs. I think they
yeah,
finally are
the
available
Bridgestone
now.
RZs I saw are making a 335. So I think honestly, I'm probably going to start out with 335 square
Mm.
and kind of see what that does. I like a wider tire. I like to run 14 square if I could and run 345 square if I could, if we had the tire to support it. But I'm thinking either, you got the Yokohamas there, but we got to, I give every tire a try every year. I try test the tires.
Mm.
So, I'm going to try these RE71s. I've heard nothing but good things about them on the smaller sizes.
Mm.
So, it's going to be interesting, but I kind of can tell what tire is hooking with my data logger.
Mm.
So I do have, I feel like some of that tech advantage. And then the front axle, there's several things that can go on into the front axle of how that's hooking, whether your driving style is putting, breaking a bunch of weight up on the front axle or if it's stagnantly hooking the tire. So, yeah, we'll find out which is the coolest tire. But man, now we got more options. And I mean, if it was you got the Hoosier. I forgot the Hoosier Time Attack is an
Oh
optimum
yeah.
tire, and they make good sizes. So, if it was up to me, we'd all just be running on Hoosier A7s or now A8s, I guess. But
Right.
we're just not. We're still running the street tires.
Yeah. Well, that Hoosier, it's I don't think it's approved by SCCA still, right? I think the tread depth
The
was too.
Hoosier Time Attack tire last I
Yeah.
heard it was not.
Mm.
But I do feel like they allowed it in King of the Mountain, and they
Okay.
did allow it in the Optima series. So I'm kind of a driver that's in a pinch because I like to do a bunch of different events,
Mm.
and you can't, I like to be competitive everywhere I go. So you get caught up with not having the right tire for the right event. It's
Mm.
troublesome. So I kind of, you got to find out, okay, this is the fastest tire for legal events. And at the end of the day, this is the fastest thing for the SCCA.
Right. He,
SCCA, it's I feel like their hands are tied more because they're more committee based, where these other organizations are more free to kind of do what they want to do.
right. Well, I mean, I kind of look at it as if why wouldn't Hoosier have just made it, what is it, 7/32 tread depth and they made it 5?
Yeah,
Because, I mean, because then you open up to a whole new audience. Because I would say that the SCCA audience is pretty large, you know,
100%.
you know.
SCCA at the end of the day, that's just where, it'd be, at the end of the day, there is fast drivers in the SCCA, and it produces fast drivers, and some people like it and some people don't hate it, but you more than likely going to get good competition when you go to a national SCCA event.
Mm.
And I feel like it still does mean something to win, a national championship there. So, you can't just say, a lot of drivers that don't are anti SCCA. I feel like they're not aware of how fast SCCA guys are because they
Mm.
are really fast, and a lot of guys just do SCCA stuff in their own right, and they're super quick. I mean, you got a lot of guys that just do, let's just say, muscle car events.
Mm.
And I like to do both. I don't stick my head in the sand of what is out there, and I like to try to drive against the fastest drivers I can, and kind of compete against the fastest drivers.
Yeah. Well, and then they got the guys that do both, like yourself. There's tons that go to the SCCA nationals and streetcar challenges and all that, and also do the muscle car events. So, do you know JJ Malrich?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
No, JJ,
yeah.
pretty good. I've saw him around for years and super good guy. He's
Mm,
always got a super cool, black fourth gen, and
mm.
he's kind of made that car a race car more and more over the years, which I'm digging it. And I know he won
Cam,
Cam
Cam,
T,
Cam T this year, yeah. Well,
and I
2025, yeah.
yeah, and I actually love that he did that. I like to see that. JJ's a good dude.
Mm,
He's got a cool rear end, very similar to mine in my Camaro. He's got a decoupled 3-link, and it's
hmm.
cool. I have a
Yep.
decoupled 3-link too in my Camaro.
Oh, is that
So
what it is? Okay, cool.
yeah. So and there's other things. I have a camera kit as well in the car, um, and I think he does too, maybe or maybe not. But um, yeah, that was cool that he won that. I was super pumped to see him win that. And JJ's always a strong competitor in his class.
Yeah. And he always goes up to the UMI stuff too.
He
So,
does. He's always
yeah.
there, and you know that he's always going to be a good challenger up there.
Mm. Well, cool. Um, let's move on to some random questions so we can wrap this thing up. So, do you prefer to drag racing or autocross more?
I'm not competitive drag racing. We got a big drag racing scene in Cincinnati.
Mm,
Small tire is a really big thing competitively, and drag racing. The bar of drag racing probably moves quicker than the bar or technology of autocross or road racing. Those guys are really constantly coming out with new horsepower numbers, and yeah, I feel like trash control technology really has the drag racers. And there's still like so many companies that I feel like autocrossers are unaware of, like Fuel Tech
mm,
is one of them. I feel like I kind of was one of the first Hall Tech guys. I feel like I was the first Hall Tech guy to really get traction control started in autocross and stuff. And so small drag racing is really competitive, but I just do it for fun. I got a pretty cool car. It's a big tire car, so it's
mm.
got 1633s. It's a pretty fast car. It's a nitrous car, so it's
Oh,
capable of
cool.
about 2,000 horsepower. It's got a two-speed power glide, and it doesn't really have traction controls on it because the 1633 Hoosiers hooked the tire up. It's
Yeah.
got wheelie bars and stuff, so it
Mm,
wheelies out to 60 foot. And
mm,
I really love to take the kids drag racing on a weekend night. I
mm.
don't take it real competitive. I have did some decent, like I did no prep and I did some outlaw competitions, but it's not. My heart is came from motocross and steering, so I
Mm.
feel like I like autocross and I like road racing,
Right.
just because braking and turning is a part of a skill level that I enjoy to try to master.
Right. Well, I think the technology in the drag racing has moved so quickly um, because it's very dependent upon the equipment. So the equipment technology needs to improve. Whereas in autocross, it's a lot of it's the person behind the wheel, you know? So,
100%.
you know,
Autocross and road racing at the raw end of things is very, very technical and very driver. The driver is going to make a big difference in that sport. When it comes to drag racing, I do. I feel like a lot of people that's never been and yeah, if you drag race a 11 or 12-second car, a 10-second car, yeah, but when you climb into a 7-second car,
yeah,
things are a little bit more exciting.
absolutely. Yeah.
So when you get in a real fast drag race car, there is some driver, especially during the launch situation. So your staging and your launch is very technical. And if you don't have a lot of seat time in that, you're not going to be consistent and you're not going to be competitive. So
Right.
it's a different skill set. Is it an equal skill set? It all depends on the equipment you're in, but there is a thing on drag racing, and even after the car leaves the line to drive, these small tire cars are getting up to 4,000 horsepower, and they do have traction controls and stuff, but they are bucking on the traction controls, and there is a lot of variables from how the track's tacked up to temperatures, and So it's different. I feel like they may not be versed on braking, obviously, because they don't really care to brake. Um, Turning the car as it's accelerating, they can figure that out. So um, I've noticed that you can take a drag racer and kind of like if you put them in an autocross situation where the car is seeing y'all or it's sideways, that doesn't make them uncomfortable. They're kind of used to that.
Mm,
I feel like they don't understand so much maybe transferring load on turning in the car, but there is skill sets in both. And um, I feel like drag racing, yes, it can be a really mechanically dependent, but if you get up in a drag race and you don't have enough seat time, it don't matter. And I see it a lot. If you have really good equipment, you're still going to lose against another drag racer.
mm.
There is a skill set when it comes to that.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially when you're talking high horsepower, stuff like that. I think they have a lot of bravery that goes along with that too. Some of those, I mean, these cars that are running, sub 4 second, eighth mile passes, it's just
Yeah.
insane, you
Yeah.
know?
Now they're running, small tire cars are running 390s now, 380s now.
Mm,
So you're doing that in a small tire car, a door car. So the thing is, everything's moving so fast in such a short time. So if the car explodes or catches on fire, or if you wreck the car, time you hit things, you're really like not even figuring out that you need to
yeah.
start to react. So
Mm,
there is a little bit of ascendant mentality in drag racing. So you are kind of like, okay, I need to get my staging head right on. I need to get my wits about me on my launch controls. But when the thing leaves, it may leave very violently, and you're just going to send it. So
mm,
you do have a send it mentality, which I have tried to, if you bring that over into other turning sports, it can get it can get a little dangerous when you're sending it and all
yeah.
across the road course. But I get it. It makes it exciting, I guess.
Yeah. Usually a safety steward doesn't like that either.
Yeah, the safety steward doesn't like the send it mentality on an autocross course.
Shoot. What kind of car did you drive to high school?
I had a '89 Firebird Formula was my very first car, and I had a really cool. I ended up hitting a guy with that, and I believe that wasn't my fault still, but I'm just joking. Like, really not. Then I had a Chrysler Conquest. You know those little turbo Chrysler
Oh
Conquests?
yeah, yeah,
Those were cool. I had one of
yeah.
those in high school, and that was like the start of like the import era.
Mm,
I graduated in 1999, so
mm,
the Chrysler, I remember we would street race. We race on the
mm,
expressway, and
mm.
it had a turbo and a little four banger. But I would run it so hard, I'd pop the hood, and the turbo would glow like a
Glowing
fire.
red.
It was just like smoldering, glowing. But
Yeah.
we did a lot of in Kentucky. We did a lot of shenanigans with the dirt biking and the cars. A lot of country roads
Mm.
that really didn't have anybody else on them. So it was a wild time as a teenager.
No, I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm probably lucky I didn't have big open land like that when I was younger. So I'd probably had some broken bones or something at some point. Last question. What's your favorite car related movie?
Oh, that's a tough one. Favorite car related movie? Oh man, you hit me with this. I honestly like the Ford versus Ferrari. That's a cool movie. I can't say I don't like that. I feel like that new movie with Brad Pitt, F1. That's a cool one,
I
right?
hadn't seen that one yet.
Yeah, that's an enjoyable one. I was watching Netflix just the other night, and a movie came on. It was about a couple. The guy ended up doing robberies. I think it was called Hit and Run or something.
Okay.
But he had a cool four door that he put a big engine in, and they end up ripping around in it. Honestly, if cars come up, I'm like a little kid.
Mm,
Anytime I see cars out, I'm always intrigued. Personally, I like race cars. So I go to PRI every year, and I enjoy PRI, and I have found out that I like race cars of like what guys have did in their garage. I
mm,
understand that you do have race car builders, and they can make stuff that normal guys aren't capable of. They have
mm,
CNC machines, they have a skill set, they have more time, and some guys make beautiful cars in companies. Detroit Speed.
mm.
Their cars are just absolutely phenomenal. But I really enjoy to see what a guy can put together in his garage, and it may not be the most expensive material, but he kind of makes it and puts it in there. I'm intrigued to look at that, and then I'm really intrigued when those cars are, the thing about a race car you build in your garage, when a Corvette's built in the plant, these engineers sit at a board desk and they plan it out. There's a lot of checks and balances and things are going to work, but you put it, you're building it in your garage. Maybe you're drinking a couple beers, maybe you're not. And you're like, I don't even know if this shit's going to work. So, and it's weird when you take it out and maybe it does work and maybe it doesn't. But every year I'll see a car that someone built in their garage come to an autocross course. And it's super fun to see the result of it, whether it's fast or slow. It's super interesting what they come up with.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, that's what this car is, did everything myself. And I appreciate when I see somebody, look, I appreciate the high end builds too. I mean, look, not everybody has the skill set to build a car, and I can understand that. And, obviously shops and companies make some amazing stuff, but oftentimes, like myself, I just enjoy building stuff and making stuff and seeing if it works. And,
Absolutely. And that's when I feel like a lot of people don't get car guys. They're like, why are you doing this? And it's just a challenge, seeing if things will work, trying something different, seeing if it will work. And you take it out and you're like, wow, that was worse than what I thought it would be. And then you take it out, and the one time it's even a shade better than what you thought, you're like, oh my gosh, it's just the best feeling ever. So
yeah,
I love seeing that.
yeah, we got a guy in my local SCCA, AJ. We were just talking over the weekend, and he said a lot of the people we have are autocrossers, but him and myself and probably a few others, we are car guys. We are car guys first that like to autocross. So I'm not looking to have the best tool to do the job out there. Well, others are. They don't care what they're in. It's the tool to get out there and go fast, where I want to have a cool car, and if I go fast, I go fast. So
100%. I kind of got into the sport. I feel like I have gotten to a point where I do enjoy I've always enjoyed the driving aspect, but I do like the cars, the muscle cars and stuff. And I felt like I'm gravitating towards the muscle cars just because of the cool factors. And yeah, growing up, I did, everyone loved Lamborghinis and stuff like that. And when I raced motorcycles, I could always think, man, that would be really fun to drive a McLaren and stuff like that. But at my age now, I just feel like it. I do have a C8 Z06. That's a pretty McLaren-y like car, maybe. But I do like the muscle stuff. The muscle stuff is kind of where I feel like at home with.
I agree. I agree. So, well, we can wrap it up before we go. Do you have any social media where people can check you out?
Just Jamie Elliot on Facebook. You can see a lot of the things I did in car videos, things I did with car stuff over the years. I got a lot of people to help me out: BES Racing Engines, CDEV Transmissions, Forceline Wheel, Quartermaster Clutch, Hawk Brakes, Electron Sport Corvette, After Darks Corvette, Sam Strano, Danny Pop. I guess BTR helps out. I kind of just thank everyone that's helped me out. As much racing as I do, Instant Karma Racing's another one. Chuck Black Race Cars is another one. Jeff Cleveland's another one. Hall Tech is a huge one. Richard Nelson does all my programming for Hall Tech, and he's phenomenal making my car work. Without him, it would be not near as good. Racewire Technologies wires the cars, and they're pretty good. But you get into the sport, and you as you progress in it, you realize you're going to have to need help. You're going to run into a wall, and you have to kind of find experts in every little field. So everyone kind of helps me do what I do. And RPM Transmissions is another one. And I just kind of thank everybody that what little bit they help me that helps me keep going in the sport.
Perfect. Yeah, we definitely need all those guys. That's what kind of feeds our sport. So we're very appreciative of all of those companies.
Anderson Composites, another one.
Okay. All right. Well, we can wrap it up there. Appreciate your time, Jamie.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Later, everybody.